Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do something simple, and I actually haven't done it in a long time. It's been about 15 months since I did my oil change. Now I know that sounds pretty dramatic, but it's only been about 7,500 miles total. I actually keep track of this in a spreadsheet just to make sure I don't forget, because sometimes it does take a long time before it actually gets up to that mark. I do use full synthetic Mobil 1 oil, but today I'm going to be using a different oil, so let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright, let's go ahead and look at some of the supplies I got here. So you can see here I got the 5-weight 30 full synthetic from Kirkland. This is actually a Costco brand, and I paid $24.99 for two 5-quart jugs, which works out to be about $12.50 per jug, and it's actually cheaper than the SuperTech full synthetic. So I'm gonna give it a try. Costco's never failed me before. It's got all the right certifications and all that stamps, so I don't see why it would fail. You'll need a new oil filter. This is the part number, and you'll need some kind of crush washer or gasket. This actually is from a Toyota Prius, and it seems to work fine. You'll need a 12mm to remove the skid plate, so that way it doesn't make a huge mess. You'll need a 14mm socket to remove the drain bolt. You'll need some kind of tool to remove the old oil filter. I like to have this swivel on here. It makes it a little bit easier to get it through that wheel well. And then a super long extension makes it much easier to work with as well, so you can attach it onto here. It doesn't hurt to have a flashlight. And then you need some kind of prying tool to remove the cover that covers that wheel well. I'll show you guys that later. And then the last thing you're going to need is somewhere to put the oil when you drain it out. I'm going to have this little jug here that works pretty amazing. And the reason why I say that is because it makes it really easy to pour this old oil out into the old jugs. I'll show you guys that later. Alright guys, before we get started, make sure you're on level ground and that your engine is actually warmed up to temperature. It'll help the oil flow out better. It's a good idea to crack this oil cap just a little bit to help it vent. It's not really necessary, but you're gonna open it anyway, so might as well open it. Alright, that's the rear skid plate. We're just gonna remove the rear one. I think that's the one that causes the most problems. We'll find out soon here. But you just want to remove the 12mm that are holding it on in the front and the back. Now there is an access hole in the skid plate, but I know that this thing's gonna make a mess. All the oil just pulls up onto here and then starts dripping everywhere, so it's better just to remove it. Alright guys, that there is the oil drain plug. It's a 14mm, and just gotta crack it open and make sure you have a container underneath to get all the oil. Shouldn't be on that tight. See how this oil looks after a year and a half almost. It's pretty dark. You can see the old gasket is still on there, so make sure you remove that. You don't want to have two gaskets. Alright, now that it's down to a drip, you want to make sure you take off this old gasket here. You don't want to have two gaskets on here, that'd be bad. Try not to gouge up the metal. Now you just gotta clean up this area with a rag, and then put the new gasket on. Put the new gasket on here. This is that Toyota Prius one. And then just snug it up. I'll put the torque spec up on the screen for you guys. I don't really use a torque spec. I think it's like 30 or less. I'm just gonna snug it up tight and call it good. You don't want to go too tight because you will strip your drain bolt threads, and that'll be a bad day. We're done down here. Let's go ahead and do the oil filter now. Alright guys, first thing you want to do is get rid of this plastic thing. This is where that pry bar comes in handy. Just got to get it under here and just pry really slow, and it'll actually come off really easily. Hopefully. You don't have to remove it completely, but there you go. So we're going to be using this oil filter adapter with the swivel on it, and then that long extension that I mentioned earlier. So we're just gonna fish it in here. Don't forget to position your oil pan down there, your oil catcher. So we'll just pass it through that harness and then fish it up in here. So you can see where that swivel comes in handy. There we go. And then we're just gonna stick a socket right here, turn that and loosen it. And don't forget to put that oil pan down there. Alright guys, I wanted to show you guys where I put the oil drain. It was right here, right under the front differential, right under the steering rack. And it seems to be the perfect spot for that oil filter to drain without causing a mess. I think this is the first oil change I've ever had that has no oil on the ground. That is a miracle. Alright, so this is kind of where it gets kind of messy, and that is, if you don't fish it out properly, it goes everywhere. So when you take it out, be extra careful. I'm gonna go ahead and take the ratchet off now. I don't really need it anymore. And we're gonna try to fish this thing out without causing a mess. Wish me luck. Okay, some more oil came out, so let it drip. And pull it out, keeping it facing up. Alright guys, that wasn't too bad. That's probably my cleanest oil change in history for this 4runner. Alright guys, next thing you want to do is clean up that surface and make sure it's semi-decent. Make sure the old gasket is not on there, and you can see it's metal, so it came off with the oil filter. And you definitely don't want to have two gaskets on there because it won't seal properly. But just get a rag and wipe it down, and then we're going to put the new oil filter on. Alright. Alright guys, here's the new oil filter. You can use any oil filter you want, but this is the OEM one. I know some people like to put oil in here, but this thing's actually facing down, so all that oil is going to drip into the engine block anyways. So what you want to do at a bare minimum is lubricate this gasket so that way it's not dry. And you just want to take some of the new oil or old oil, it doesn't really matter, and just lightly coat it. And then you want to fish it back in there and just tighten it down. And then once it's tight, I just give it a little bit more turn. I just hand tighten it. I never use a tool to put this on. It's never given me any problems. So, but yeah, you want this decently tight on there. All right, she's back in there. And I'm just gonna give it one final turn. Alright, so she's tight on there now. Alright guys, there's the oil filter, nice and neat in its new home. And you're just going to want to put these clips back on now. Go ahead and do that. And they just snap back in place pretty easy. Alright, once you got the oil filter tightened up, everything should be sealed now, and you can add some oil in now. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is you do need one of these funnels to get the oil in there cleanly. And you can go ahead and just take off your oil cap and stick this in there somehow. That looks like it'll do. So we're using 5-weight 30 Costco oil, full synthetic, and it takes 5.5 quarts. So I'm gonna try to see if I can do this without hitting that line. It probably won't work. Oh wow, very close. Alright guys, that's 5 quarts. And then we need to add another 1/2 quart. And what I do is I normally pour 1/2 quart into here, like right here halfway, and then pour this rather than trying to pour that big old jug. That'll make it a little bit easier. So let me go ahead and pour some oil in here up to the halfway. This is 1 quart on the right here, so just pour it up to here and dump it in there. All right, you probably can't see that, but there's half a quart in there. We're just gonna pour it in here and call it a day. All right, let's close up the cap and then fire it up for a couple minutes. Let it get to temperature, and then check for leaks. I also check the dipstick here. Alright, you guys, we'll let it run for a couple minutes to warm up, and I didn't see any leaks underneath, so that's good. One last thing you want to check is to check the dipstick to make sure that it's at the correct level. You want to pull it out and then wipe it all off, and then put it back in. And then pull it back out one more time, and make sure it's in between the two lines. So there you go. It's a little bit above the halfway mark, which is perfect. So now we're going to put the skid plate back on and then clean everything up. And I wanted to show you guys one more thing before we finish this job. So I definitely wasn't kidding when I said there are no spills down here. I can't believe it. This is like the first time ever. It's normally a hot mess. So I wanted to show you guys one last thing before you left, and that is to measure how much oil came out. This will tell you if your engine is burning oil. And I think my 4runner burns about half a quart every oil change. This one's been over 15 months, so it might have burned more. We'll find out right now. So I got an empty jug here from another oil change that I'm going to fill up, and we're going to find out how much oil actually came out. So I think I'll put 4 quarts in here, and then I'll use the other jug from the oil change and see what comes out after that. Alright, so that's 4 quarts. Alright, I got another jug here, and we're going to dump the rest in here and see where we're at. This is why I like this oil drain pan. It's got this spout, makes it nice and neat. I've used some of the other ones and they go everywhere. Let's see if there's any in the oil filter. Probably is some. Yep. Not much. Alright, let's see where we're at. Alright, you probably can't see it on the camera, but this one is right here at about 4 quarts. And then this one over here is right here at 1.5 quarts. So it looks like I'm not burning any oil. I got 5.5 quarts out. So that's a good thing. That means your engine is actually working really well and everything's working the way it should be working. These Toyota engines should not be burning any oil if they're in good shape. Alright you guys, pretty simple job, not too messy. Well, at least for me, that's actually the first time it's ever been that clean. Usually there's oil everywhere on the ground. So don't forget to take the oil back to O'Reilly or AutoZone to have it dumped. And that just goes to show you guys that Toyota makes great engines. As you saw, no oil was burned at all from that engine. Maybe a slight amount, but probably not that much to worry about. My engine's got 172,000 miles on it. It's a 1999 V6. And I've never had any issues with, oil leaks or oil burning. And also my Toyota Prius doesn't burn any oil either. It's got 134,000 miles. It's a 2010. And so you can see this trend kind of continues with Toyota. I know some Toyotas have issues with burning oil, but for me, I haven't had that experience. I think that engine is probably going to last over 300,000 miles. Hopefully, we'll see. It's a little over halfway there, and I have no complaints about that engine at all. So if you guys like what you saw, don't forget to hit the like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'll have more video content coming soon. And until then, have a nice day.